as we go throughout the webinar. So you've joined the monday.com for Working in the Field webinar, where we are going to describe a workflow and talk about features that help us to transcend office walls. Whether your company and business is really typically has a field component, or you're finding yourself with a similar remote, disjointed type of office culture given the current state of our world, hopefully this webinar will give you some tips and tricks that'll really help to give you some ideas. Let's go ahead and start with a few housekeeping items. We are going to have a Q&A portion of the webinar, and feel free as I'm going along to put all of your questions in the Q&A portion of the Zoom. That is the portion that we'll be referencing. If you put them in the chat, they get very lost. However, the Q&A on the Zoom is where all of your questions should go. The actual kind of content of the webinar will take about 30, maybe 40 minutes, and we will then break and do all kind of Q&A and address some of the common questions that are being asked. As I mentioned, I do have my colleague Lindsay who will be helping to address some of your questions as we go. So definitely put those questions in the Q&A, not in the chat, and we will be sure to get to them. If at any point you cannot see the screen or hear me, please let me know in the chat box. As well as following this webinar, a recording will be uploaded on our on-demand page. And that is where you can access the recording. You can share the recording with others that it might be relevant. You can reference maybe a workflow or something we discussed. You do not need to email support to get a recording of the webinar. We are uploading it to the on-demand page. It'll be accessible for you and anybody else whom this may be of interest. Additionally, for some of the newcomers joining us on the webinar today, we will be sharing a form. It is this form right here. However, I'm going to go ahead at the end of the webinar and put this into the chat. This is a form if you'd like additional assistance setting up your workflow, or really are hoping to get in contact with the Monday team about workflow management. That is a form that you can access and fill out. I'll be putting it in the chat at the end of the webinar. So nothing to do quite yet. Okay, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to start by reviewing the workflow that I've built as an example of using monday.com partnering with a field component of your business. We're going to talk about key columns that really kind of help to take that workflow to the next level that might be particularly relevant for this audience here that is working in the field or helping to manage a team that's in the field. We'll talk about views and consuming data in a different way, as well as automating your workflow. And lastly, we'll discuss communication capabilities within the platform before we break for that Q&A. This webinar is a little bit unique in that we are going to be kind of bouncing between the monday.com platform that I'll be accessing via a web browser and showing you examples of how this will look on our mobile applications. We have an application for both iOS and Android. And of course, for our on-the-go workers, having that mobile access is going to be super important. So while we'll be showing some demonstration and talking about the workflow beginning on the web, we will jump back to the presentation to show you videos that exemplify how this looks in a mobile perspective, what your iOS and Android team users will be seeing, and how they can kind of help to partner between what you're seeing on the web and using this in the field. So that's going to be our webinar today. Let's go ahead and get started. As I just mentioned, we wanted to build a workflow that kind of showed an example of coupling office work with that on-the-go access. For those that are working in the field or have a team that is maybe disjointed in terms of location and work site, you can understand that there's a component where your work is being managed, potentially dispatched, reviewed in an office setting, or a home location, a stagnant location, as well as you have team members, you have vendors, you have subcontractors, you have some management of the work that is done on the go. And that can be done via the mobile app. As I mentioned, we have an app for both iOS and for Android, as well as apps that can be managed via tablets. And that's something we wanted to kind of show today and use an example workflow of how you can couple that office work and that central management with your field workers. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the platform and talk to you about the use case that I've built as an example here today. Now, we hope that this gives you all ideas, whether this is your exact use case or something potentially similar. The idea behind this use case is that coupling component of an office central management and dispatching work out to workers that are on site in the field, as we're calling it. So here's our workflow. My example company is that I am a kitchen parts dispatcher and manager, right? So I get several different requests from my clients who need parts of their kitchen changed, inspected, managed, in some way or another. Maybe I work closely with construction companies that are building new builds. Maybe I help to support a big rental building where the tenants, if they have any issues or breakdown to it, the central management of that building reaches out to me and I help to supply and manage those parts. So that is the example use case we'll be kind of talking through today. Now let's talk about how this workflow works in the way that it was built, and then we'll go ahead and dive into some of the additional features. So to start, you can see our top group is for incoming orders, and I'm actually managing that via a Monday form. If you're not familiar with forms, Form View is one of our views available in the View Center where it turns your board into a fillable form. Here is my intake form generated from the monday.com form view where I can go ahead and give this out to, as I said, the landlord, to the tenants, to the construction company, where they can fill in the requests for the kitchen part that is needed. For example, I'm going to say, okay, I need the sink faucet is not working correctly. It's leaky. This is going to be using a drop down in the sink. The address that I would like this sent to is here we go. That's the delivery address, and my requested date is this can come in Friday. Okay, and I go ahead and press submit. The form was successfully submitted, and you can see in my kitchen parts dispatch, I've just received a notification that I have a new request, and in my incoming orders group, I have this new request right here. They go to the top group, which is managing my incoming orders, compared to the lower groups that manage my active orders being actively worked on and serviced by my team members, and my completed orders, which are going to this bottom group. You can see here that the form only encompassed a few of the columns that were relevant for the client. However, I have several other columns, which we'll be going over today in the workflow, that are more relevant for my team. And I was able to blind those on the form to just kind of get the key details I need and then still allow my team to actually fill out the work that they'll be doing in the field in their end. Okay, so here is my new request. The office worker that I am, I'm sitting at our headquarters, go ahead and I assign those requests. So I say, okay, this request is going to be serviced by my colleague, Lindsay, going to assign her right here. And Lindsay is going to get a notification that she has a new job, and she can now see all the details, which I'm going to show you in the mobile video in just a moment. Lindsay is not one of my colleagues in the office, but rather she is in the field working on several different jobs. As you can see here in this active group, she's very busy, but she has a new order where she's going to get a notification and can see via the mobile app all of the details. She can see where this is going to, what type of part we're talking about, and she can track and manage her work directly from the mobile app. I will be showing you what that looks like. Just want to level set on the workflow first on the platform. Okay, so she can then go ahead and switch the status from pending to working on it, which will then show that she is actively going to go ahead, tackle the job, and this automatically moves down to my active orders. Lindsay is still assigned, all my key details maintained, but now I have the status in working on it, so it is part of the active order group. Once done, she can similarly change the status to done, and that will move it down to my completed orders group. All right, so that's kind of an idea of this workflow at a high level. We have our incoming orders. I dispatch them out via the people column to my field workers, and my field workers are able to fully track and manage their work. I can see actively as Lindsay switches her status from working on it and eventually to done. I can see that updated within my centralized system on the web within monday.com, but she is doing all of that directly from the mobile app. So let's go ahead and go over to the mobile app, and I can show you what's that going to look like from Lindsay's side. There is no sound in the video, just as a heads up. So you can see she got this email notification that she has a new job. She's going over, she's seeing all of the columns associated, particularly the address. She's switching it to working on it, which is triggering the time tracking column to start. It is now within the active orders. The time tracking has begun to track her time, as well as she's in active orders working on it. Let's watch that one more time. You can see the notification going over to the column information and data. As she switches the status to working on it, the time tracking column begins. So I'm able to bill her for billable hours or something to that effect, as well as it automatically moves to active orders. And here I can see exactly what she is doing and where she is and what she's working on. It's very kind of seamless communication. So that's our overall workflow. I do just want to reference to see if there's any questions in regard to our workflow, because that's going to kind of be the example that we're talking about today. No. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions specific to the workflow quite yet in the Q&A. Definitely keep them coming. How is the automation working? We're going to talk about that, Pablo. We have a section all on the automation, so I'll be able to show you exactly kind of how to configure that and get it all set up. Great question. Okay. Cool. So let's go ahead, and now we're going to jump into talking about some of the key columns designed in this workflow that are really helping to enable it, as well as enable proper management of both the individuals that are based in the office as well as those that are based in the field. The first one I'd like to highlight is this column right here, which is a location column. If you're not familiar, you can add any columns via our column center, which can be found right here. And this particular column is called the location column. It ties into maps softwares that allow you to specify a specific address. So for your field workers that might be moving from one job to another and kind of constantly on the go, the location column helps them to find where they need to be very seamlessly, tying into the mapping software that is available on their mobile device. Additionally, we've customized a status column. So once again, if you're unfamiliar, that is via our column center, and I'm referencing the status column. The status column has a lot of capabilities. We're actually using two on this board. The first is to show where things stand, working on it, stuck, an issue, the job is done and complete. But the second is to show the appliance type. By clicking Add Edit Labels, I was able to customize the status column and show that if this is an appliance that's an oven, it's a microwave, it's a sink, a refrigerator, things that were very specific to me and to my business. However, these can be completely customized within monday.com to show the information that might be the most relevant for you. So definitely the use of status columns to not only show job status, but also to show other key details, categories, things that are easily bucketable, if that's a word. That is a great use of the status column. Additionally, I'm using the time tracking column here. Okay, in my column center, search for it, and it is called time tracking right there. This is available on our Pro plan and above, and this essentially shows like it's a stopwatch. So it basically shows how long each job is taking. So I can see that this oven fan job took 1 hour and 30 minutes compared to maybe a quick job, which was a refrigerator suction not working correctly, taking only 16 minutes. This is really helpful if you need to track the time to understand efficiency of your field workers, understand how long jobs are taking them, why somebody that you scheduled might be arriving late to a particular job or job site. Maybe you can understand via the time tracking, oh, well, they're actually over what we had expected, or below via the time tracking column. Also really great for billable hours if you need to know how much to pay somebody, given that you are based on an hourly rate, the time tracking can really help there. I can filter the board and maintain how long Lisa's time in general took her, and that way I know exactly how much to pay her at the end of the week or something like that. And the last column I want to highlight is the files column. This column allows us to upload images, files, documents directly in context. And that's super helpful for on-the-go or field workers. So I can see here the oven fan needed replacing, and here is a photo of it. So I can just check, the part specifically and really stay in touch. A lot of field workers are responsible for uploading photos, videos of their work, and that's why we really recommend the file column to achieve that. It keeps things very organized, very contextual. Just as my colleague Itai is working on this oven light, he can scroll over and directly upload the file, or potentially the few files in this case that we're seeing here. So those are some of the key columns that I wanted to show today. I want to show you how this looks from the perspective of the field worker as well. We just saw how it looks on the web version. However, let's bounce over to the video to see how this looks from Lindsay's perspective, uploading and managing and dealing with kind of all of these different columns via her mobile app. We will play the video twice. Okay. So you can see here, she's uploading and she's filtering the board by herself to see her jobs, and specifically referencing some of the columns via the card view. Right here, I'm seeing the address that she's able to open in Google Maps. That's via the location column. I'm seeing the file ability where she's able to go to her photo gallery on her mobile device, upload the specific part file. Okay, here it goes, and you can see it's now attached to the item, as well as the date column. She's adjusting the delivered date, so that way I can understand if something was delivered on time. And lastly, she adjusts the status column to show that the job is done. Let's look at this one more time. We're highlighting here the various columns and how they look from the perspective of the field worker. Beginning with filtering the board, seeing all of the columns via the pulse card. As you can see here, she's going to start with that address, opening in Google Maps. This is all done via her mobile device. Uploading and attaching files directly associated with the item, very contextual, clear. Entering the delivery date so I can see exactly when something was delivered and if it was done on time, and switching to job done. Awesome. Okay, so that was kind of wrapping up some of the key columns we're using in this workflow and how they look from the mobile device. We're now going to talk about the views, okay? On the mobile app, we recently released the ability to interact with board views. The idea of a view is that you're able to consume your data in various formats and various views. So let's go ahead and jump into the platform where we'll talk about various board views. Just to level set, in case you're not familiar with what board views are, this is our main table view, okay? It's kind of the basic structure of monday.com. However, we have a views center that can be found right here by clicking on more views that will show you all the different views of how you can slice and dice your data. So, for example, we have the files view where all of your files on a board are comprised into one central repository. We have chart view where you're able to take your data from your board and put it into charts and pie charts, line charts, things like that. And the forms view, which I touched on earlier, as well as the calendar view. Maybe you want to understand how all of your jobs are lining up, what are your busiest days, and you really want to see all of these items structured and mapped onto a calendar. That would be an example of the calendar view. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into that view so I can show you how it works. You can see here we have several requested delivery dates, and I want to see that all mapped onto a singular view. By going to Add View and selecting the calendar, my board has transformed into a full view calendar where I'm able to see, okay, I have 2 jobs lining up for this day. I'm actually pretty open these next 2 days and a job lining up for this day. Super helpful for in the field management where you're probably managing many different stakeholders, competing schedules, and things to that effect. There's additional customization that can be done via the settings menu, whether you want to include all of the dates or maybe just the requested delivery date or just the delivered date. Here I'm just kind of toggling on and off, the various date columns that are active on my board. Additionally, to highlight one more, if I wanted to show the chart view, this is where I can break down what percentage of my business is late versus what percentage of my business is on time. Or maybe I'm really looking at the appliance type to understand where our specialty is. It looks like ovens are our primary business compared to stovetops, which are less frequent. Okay, so in this, this is how you can basically change the view of your data to make it kind of into reports as well as kind of more specific views that are interesting to you compared to just the main table perspective. We do offer views on iOS and Android, our mobile apps. However, there are some differences. Right now, candidly, we do not offer every view on every mobile app. We are working on increasing that. However, we are excited to support some additional views on the mobile app, and I want to go ahead and show you what that looked like. So you can see in the previous video that the field worker in our example, Lindsay, was able to use the map view and kind of pin where her job was, and she can see that really using the mapping software that's available on her phone. Let's go ahead and take a look at some additional views and how they look on the mobile app compared to the web. Okay, so she's in her view center and she's particularly clicking on the calendar view. Now what she's gonna do here is filter by herself because she only wants to see her jobs and her active jobs at that to understand her availability. Maybe she's scheduling for other people that she contracts with or something to that effect. As well as we just saw the location, which is tying into the map view. Right here, she can understand exactly where she needs to go and how to get from one point to another. Let's go ahead and watch that again. In this video, Lindsay is interacting with the View Center via the mobile app. You can see she's clicking on main table, going to the calendar, and she's going to filter down this calendar to just herself to understand what active jobs she has and what her busy days are. She's quite available. In that, she's going to open the columns and click on the delivery address to utilize that map view, particularly Google Maps in this case, and see where she needs to go and the directions of how to get there. Okay, so both perspectives on views and how views work from the web perspective as well as the mobile perspective. As I said, we do not have every view on mobile yet. We are working on increasing this, and there is a little bit of variance between what's available on iOS compared to Android. However, we are really excited to launch views on the mobile app and hope that you'll go ahead and check them out. All right, moving on. And I did see some questions in the chat around this, around automations. This workflow does involve several automations, and I want to show you how to build that so that your workflow can work for you. Automations help us to eliminate that manual labor of moving an item, and let's say you forget and then your incoming orders have active order items and the whole thing can be a mess. So using automations, you're able to increase the efficiency of your workflow, and let's go ahead and take a look at that. This is going to be done primarily all on the web. That is where I will say that if you would like to build automations, it has to be done via the web. You cannot build automations on the mobile app. You can use automations on the mobile app. So what do I mean by that? I need to construct the automation, which we're going to talk through here and how to do that via this web browser. But then as Lindsay changes that status from working on it to done, the item will use the automation and move itself on the mobile app. Okay, so just a note here on the limitations and what you can expect. Let's talk about how to build automations. On every board, you'll see the top two buttons right here. Again, I'm on the web browser where there's our integrations as well as our automations. If I click on this little robot, that's our automations. And the way that our automations work is very simple. There's a trigger and there's an action. Okay, so if I look at a status change automation, for example, and this tile right here, when a status changes to something, archive the item. I have my trigger when the status changes to something, that's my trigger, and the action is archiving the item. All of the automations work the same, whether it's a status change or whether it's a notification. When a column changes, that's my trigger. Notify somebody, that's my action. And anything that is in bold can be customized. So let's use this one as an example. Okay, when a column changes, which column is changing? So in this case, I'm going to say when the status changes, and in this automation, it's just when it changes to anything, notify somebody. What should the notification say and who should it go to? So me as the office worker, I'd like to be notified anytime the status is updated. So I'm going to select myself, notify me, and what should the automation say? I'm going to have it say, item name now has a new status, check it out. That way, as my field workers are going about their day and they are, switching their statuses from working on it to done, I'm able to really stay on top of them. I don't need to micromanage them, text them, where are you, what's happening? Rather, I can see every time that status changes, and all they have to do is update it directly in Monday, and the automation will trigger a notification for me. Okay. Similarly, I have some others that have to do with those item moves. So you can see these two here. When the status changes to working on it, and I customized this label, move the item to active orders. This was built via the web in exactly that same process. I have my trigger when status changes to working on it, and I have my action, move the item to active orders. Similarly here, when the status changes to job done, move the item to completed orders, and things like that. The one thing I did want to kind of highlight on today's webinar is our ability to build custom automations. And that is something that we are really working on in a really exciting way via our automations team. Again, this has to be all done from the web. It cannot be done from the mobile app quite yet, but by using the custom automation builder, you're able to build bespoke automations. So if you're not finding a tile, as we discussed here with that trigger and the action that is really working for you and what you're hoping to do, you can create custom automations where you design when this happens, do something. When the person is assigned via the assignee column, I'd like to create a group that is called Lucy's Orders. Something like that. Of course, I'm just kind of, making it up here as I go. But I did want to kind of implore everybody to check out the custom automation builder. It's a super, super cool new feature. We're adding support to it really in every type of plan as we go. So definitely take a look at your custom automation builder. You have these pre-made automations to help you as a great starting point, but if you're not finding what you need, custom automations could be a really great solution for you. Okay, so I'm not going to have any video from the mobile app currently because you cannot build automations on the mobile app. However, as you saw in some of the previous videos, when those statuses were changed and things like that, everything seamlessly started. When Lindsay changed her status from pending to working on it, the time tracking automatically started. That was all done via the automations that are built on this board. Okay. The last thing I'm going to kind of talk about today before we really break for the Q&A is all about communication, staying up to date and in touch while your workers are disjointed and on the go. So for those that might not be familiar, the update section, which can be found in this gray speech bubble, is really the central communication hub of monday.com. It's where we can increase contextual communication, decreasing that need for long email threads, for boring meetings, for lots of calls and text messages and everything to that effect, but rather via the update section, which I'm just finding by clicking on this gray speech bubble, I'm able to communicate in context. Specifically on my kitchen parts dispatch board, I'm talking about an active order, which is the ice maker, and I can mention Lindsay and ask her, why is this late? And press update, and she will get that notification. I want to show you what this looks like from the other direction, which is from your field worker keeping in touch with you, keeping in contact with you so that you're aware of any changes to the job, to the order, to the situation that they're experiencing, even though you or whomever you may work with might be sitting in an office or potentially sitting at a completely different location. This really helps you to stay in contact and stay in touch with whoever your team is, subcontractors, field workers, everybody working from home, via the mobile app and while people are on the go. Okay. We're going to watch this twice as well. You can see here, Lindsay is going over to the update section and she's commenting. She's mentioning me, and she's going to write a note specific to kind of a bent part that she's seeing. She's saying the freezer door looks like it's that we installed is bent. We're going to have an issue. And I am sitting in the office, but I'm getting this update in real time, even though she's typing to the mobile app. There's also an action for me. Can you ask the vendor to ship us a new one, which I can get in real time? She doesn't have to leave the job, call me, and she uploads the photo to show me the exact bent part. You can see here that's now attached to the update section right here. Let's go ahead and just watch that one more time. She starts by clicking on the item and going to the update section and uses our @mention functionality to specifically flag to me this bent part and what she's experiencing in the field. Now, of course, in this situation, she wanted to upload a photo. She could have uploaded a doc, something like that as well. And I'm able to comment directly back and forth to her as well, saying, okay, calling the vendor now, tell the client it'll be 15 minutes, and she is able to manage those expectations. We aren't having to leave monday.com. Everything is in one central work OS together rather than switching between texts and calls and emails and Monday and all of the various systems you may have. Great. The last thing I want to show you just in terms of communication on the go is going to be specific to dashboards. And this is one of our newest and I would say most exciting, latest kind of updates to the mobile app. So we have the dashboards functionality. If you're not familiar with what that is, the dashboards are a central reporting tool within monday.com. Okay, so they are different than our boards, but what they can do is they can take data from multiple boards and combine it into a singular view. And specifically, they can use some of those views that we spoke about. In this case, you can see many examples of the chart view, and many others as well via widgets to kind of show the data in a different way. Think of it as like a very robust reporting and high level capability to stay on top of your work. So here I'm on the web and I have my kitchen parts dispatching dashboard where I'm not seeing my jobs in, jobs out tactical management, but rather I'm tracking things like my delivery accuracy, what's on time versus what's late. I'm tracking my accuracy per employees. I can see that I am killing it with my on-time orders compared to Itai, who might need a little bit more assistance because a lot is coming in late for him. I'm able to see my breakdown of orders, my current orders, who is working on what right now in this week's span that I've selected, as well as a calendar widget showing all my jobs together. This is a great tool for, as I said, reporting or high-level management of a lot of different projects, things you have going on. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you work across many different buildings, and what you're trying to do is keep a board per building, but have one space where all of the data from all of the buildings comes together in a singular view. That is when you would use a dashboard, okay? So I would have my board for building A, my board for building B, but in a dashboard, I could combine data for my whole portfolio of buildings. Here's what they look like on the web browser. And you can see really, really kind of cool, colorful, engaging. And this is going to be your central spot for editing, adding, adjusting the dashboards and the widgets. However, one of the things that we recently added via the mobile app to stay in touch and to stay on top of things, even if you're on the go, is the ability to support dashboards on the mobile app. And I'm going to show you in a video exactly what that looks like. This increases communication because let's say a manager of some sort is able to still maintain that high level view while being out on the road and kind of moving from site to site, as well as increases the ability to have access to real-time reports and information. Here is what this looks like on the mobile app. Going to my side menu and clicking on dashboards, they're new. Lindsay's going to search for the dashboard and open up that kitchen parts dashboard. You can see here all of those charts, delivery accuracy. She's able to see the delivery accuracy per employee that we talked about. A breakdown of the types of requests. Some of our dates, orders being worked on, so on and so forth. Yes, the screen is a bit different. We're designing for a mobile screen and for thumbs to scroll compared to on the web browser. However, we were able to take the dashboard and translate it onto the mobile app. Again, any type of creation or management of the widgets must be done via the web. However, you can now access this data on the go, stay in touch. On your way to that job site, you can see exactly the type of, where your employee is and who and what they're working on. All right. So now we're going to go into our Q&A. I know I just threw a lot at you and kind of ping-ponged between the web and the mobile app, and I would love to kind of hear your questions and understand what I can help to answer or what may have not been so clear.